Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change, the effects of climate change, the rapidity of climate change, the ongoing devolvement of the world in and around climate change. So this is probably going to be another kind of rambling video. And it's getting late. I'm very tired. It's actually quite chilly, or chilly enough out here. And I don't have any shoes on, so that's probably why I'm cold, but it's like 50 degrees. But I like that kind of thing. So I'm going to start this video with a comment. This is from a few days ago from Zombie Vampires. 1984, Big Brother predicted cameras would be located all over the place, tracking your every move. Back then, they would never have thought of a population willfully carrying a 24-hour homing device in their pockets. Consumers are stupid. We all bought into the belief that the convenience outweighs our privacy. I don't find any convenience in deleting mass amounts of email advertising or hourly notifications. No convenience in constant updates and device repairs and replacements and crappy accessories that break within months. We've all been fed lies perpetuated by corporations to take your hard-earned dollars. Can't afford rent or food or healthcare, but having a device so I can purchase Chinese crap in a millisecond seems to be the ultimate scam. And for what? So me and my family can sit in front of a screen for countless hours a day, watching our other people have fun, watching our leaders take more control of our precious time, sending us propaganda while we argue with others on social media. The world is in a predicament. The ice caps are melting and the oceans are rising. The immigrants are arriving by the millions. The insects are dying and the crops are failing. The air, the oceans, and the land is more polluted than ever before. The government lies to us so they can reap bigger profits and suck out every dime from our piggy banks. We needed to wake up and decide who will control our destiny. Will we just sit around contemplating, or worse, in a complete state of denial, or will we finally decide who should be in control of our society, us or them? Good comment by Zombie Vampires. Thank you. I've been wanting to read that for a couple videos and I have not had a chance. Another progress trap, right? You know, the more technology we have, the more we're enslaved to it. I feel, you know, on some levels completely enslaved. I'm constantly looking at a computer screen or at my phone screen while I'm admonishing my daughter for, you know, for her screen time, which I do actually a pretty good amount of controlling. You know, I do keep her away from the tablets and the phones and the TVs for a good amount of the day. But then, you know, I have to look at myself, and it's kind of, if I'm not actually engaged in an activity of some kind, playing music or playing with my daughter or whatever, I am on the computer or on my phone. And it's actually making my life very, very complicated in unnecessary ways. So really quickly, here's just a random website, not random, but this is on NASA, and it's called Global Climate Change, Vital Signs of the Planet. And it's basically, it's basically a rundown of what climate change is, and here are the facts, and here's what you need to know, and here's some hockey sticks, and here's, you know, I'll quickly run through the list of why climate change is happening. Every time I hear somebody talking about how climate change is fake, my head just starts exploding, and I hear it kind of daily almost. Because I follow a lot of like conspiratorial sites, and I follow QAnon, and I follow all these other things, just, you know, to keep my ear to the ground and see what's happening. And almost invariably every single day somebody says something stupid like, oh, the guys are, they're manipulating the numbers, but these people have no clue about the actual things right in front of their face if they wanted to look. If they took 5 minutes to go actually look at the things that are actually happening. Global temperature rise. Yes, the global temperature is going up. Warming oceans. Yes, the oceans are warming. That's why we're having more storms. That's why we're having a record, during the last 3 years, a record amount of storms, hurricanes, cyclones, 1,000-year rain events, floods everywhere. That's because there's more water in the atmosphere. Shrinking ice sheets. That's actually happening. Nobody's manipulating that. That's really, really happening. Somebody tried to link something from the Danish Meteorological Institute the other day about there's more mass balance. And so I went over to the Danish Meteorological Institute website, and on the first page that came up, it said the ice is well below the 30-year extent, well below. And this person was trying to tell me that it's been above for the last 3 years. It's been above the 30-year average. And I went to the site. It's not above average. Stop it. Stop bullshitting people. Stop lying. Stop giving people false information. Just stop it. I know you're probably paid trolls. Glacial retreat. Yes, glaciers are melting. Just all you have to do is look at pictures of glaciers all over the place. Himalayas, the French Alps, in Scandinavia, there's no snow. There was no snow for deep into the fall and the winter when there was supposed to be snow. Decreased snow cover. That's exactly what I was just talking about. Sea level rise. That's actually happening. Places are actually getting flooded. There are towns in Louisiana that have to move. Towns in Alaska that have to move. There are king tides in Miami. So basically they have flooding events when the sun is out, there's no rain, just the tides come in and the tides are higher. So they're flooding the city. That's called sea level rise. Declining Arctic sea ice. That's really, really happening. That's actually happening. Nobody's faking any satellite images. This is really, really happening. The Arctic sea ice has been at the lowest levels ever for the last 5 years. 2016 was the lowest extent ever. And many people predict now every single summer that this is going to be the year that we get a blue ocean event, which means zero Arctic sea ice, or, basically zero. Extreme weather events. I just talked about those. Ocean acidification. That really, really is happening. We have coral bleaching events. We have, what is it? We have we have other sea animals that are succumbing to ocean acidification, shellfish, crabs, crustaceans that are basically losing their shells because the ocean is too acidic. Dead starfish, et cetera, et cetera. This is well documented. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about this, but I'll link it below just in case you're confused about whether climate change is happening or not. Greenland's melting snow makes new hockey stick graph. So here we go. The last 20 years were no natural fluke. The Greenland ice sheet's unhealthy and rapid weight loss and contribution to sea level rise occurs by a handful of mechanisms. In short, ice at the edge of the glacier can melt or break off into icebergs. And surface snow farther inland can melt. That snow melt is a bit like rainfall in that it can either soak into the snow or run off in streams where it trickles down into the denser snow below. Greenland has experienced a remarkable amount of surface melting over the past couple decades, including the record-setting summer of 2012 that saw virtually the entire ice sheet melting at the surface. I'm sorry, I actually meant 2012 when I said the lowest extent. Because surface melting, was that right? Was 2012 the lowest extent or 2016? Somebody help me in the comments. Because surface melting had historically been an unusual event. Akin to newsworthy heat waves, glaciologists wanted to put this into context. How much of Greenland's recently accelerating ice loss was due to natural variability and how much was due to human-caused trends? And there's a video here explaining that we have excellent records of surface melt over the satellite area, but a team led by Rowan University's Luke Trussell turned to ice cores from Western Greenland to build a much longer record. From the 3 new ice cores and one existing one, they were able to compile a detailed history of surface melt events going back over 350 years. Here, another hockey stick type graph where you have the runoff over 350 years and then wham, when we hit basically late 1900s, 2000, it is going through the roof. Anyways, I'll link this below. Moving on. Okay, so I'm gonna read just a couple paragraphs again from this Paul Kingsnorth article that I've been talking about and reading and kind of like mulling over. And I actually lost the place I want to read from. Darn it. Okay. Hold, please. Just going to read a few quick paragraphs. So this is wilderness can be saved permanently, claims Ted Kaczynski, only by eliminating the techno-industrial system. I am beginning to think that the neo-environmentalists may leave a deliciously ironic legacy, proving the Unabomber right. In his book, A Short History of Progress, Ronald Wright coins the term progress trap. A progress trap, says Wright, is a short-term social or technological improvement that turns out in the longer term to be a backward step. By the time this is realized, if it ever is, it is too late to change course. The earliest example he gives is the improvement in hunting techniques in the Upper Paleolithic era. Around 15,000 years ago, Wright tracks the disappearance of wildlife on a vast scale whenever prehistoric humans arrived on a new continent. As Wright explained, some of their slaughter sites were almost industrial in size, 1,000 mammoths at once, more than 100,000 horses at another. But there was a catch. The perfection of hunting spelled the end of hunting as a way of life. Easy meat meant more babies meant more hunters sooner or later meant less game. Most of the great human migrations across the world at this time must have been driven by want, as we bankrupted the land with our movable feasts. This is the progress trap. Each improvement in our knowledge or in our technology will create new problems which require new improvements. Each of these improvements tend to make society bigger, more complex, less human scale, more destructive of non-human life, and more likely to collapse under its own weight. So he's saying that the reason why agriculture, and other people say this as well, the reason why agriculture actually started was not because it was easier, but because we basically killed everything in sight, and we ran out of wild game to hunt. So we're like, where are we going to get food? Oh, we can plant food. And that was that. Anyways, I'll link it again, you guys, if you haven't read it yet. Moving on to the same article, a part of the article I didn't read from the Nobel Prize, William Nordhaus winning the Nobel Prize. It's a staggering idea and could be a complete game changer, but what would a post-growth economy look like? The first step is to realize that high levels of GDP are in fact not necessary for high levels of human well-being. True, social indicators are generally correlated with GDP per capita, but it's a saturation curve. Past a certain point, more GDP adds little to human well-being. Take the United States, for example. In 1975, America's GDP per capita was only half its present level in real terms. And yet wages were higher, happiness levels were higher, and the poverty rate was lower. Even more interestingly, some countries have high levels of human development with relatively low GDP per capita, and we, the United States, can learn a lot from them. Europe's GDP per capita is 40% less than that of the United States, and yet it has better social indicators in virtually every category. Costa Rica has higher life expectancy than the United States, and happiness levels that rival Scandinavia with 1/5 of America's GDP per capita. They also do not have a military. That is also something we could learn from Costa Rica. Who needs it? How is it possible? It all comes down to distribution. In 1975, this is called socialism. For all those, these right-wing lunatics who are like, oh my God, socialists are, live in poverty and they don't have anything and they eat dogs. And where did I see that in passing in some article? Somebody saying something stupid. In 1975, America gave a greater share of national income to workers than it does today because we had unions, and Europe invests more in social goods like public health care and education. than the United States does. This raises the question: if Europe can outperform the United States with significantly less income, then does the American economy really need to keep going or growing? And the answer is it doesn't. If human welfare is what we're after, growth certainly isn't the most efficient way to get there. It's spreading the wealth around. It's very simple. It sounds like communism or socialism. That's because it is. That's how it works. If you actually let it work the way it's supposed to work. The other myth or lie is that, European healthcare is substandard or below American. Bullshit. Cuban healthcare is wonderful. Communist, socialist healthcare. Cuba, everybody has healthcare. They have great healthcare. Stop lying to people. Right, all you right wingers, stop believing lies. Stop believing bullshit lies. It's a lie. It's bullshit. There was another lie that was kind of formed in the 70s when we were in a bit of a recession, and they used that recession to, and the fact that everybody was buying German cars and Japanese cars, and gas was expensive, and it was kind of the first wave of like technology coming from Asia, and they convinced the American people that the reason why we were so unproductive or lagging behind these other countries was because of unions and socialization and all these social programs, and because everybody was getting paid so much money that we were all fat and lazy and unproductive and not innovative and all that bullshit. Because when were computers invented? When were a lot of the technological things that we enjoy right now were all kind of started in the 70s, when everybody was fat and lazy and happy and had a lot of money, and etc. Anyways, more lies. Anyway, that's all I'm going to read of that. I'll link it below again if you want to read that again. Just going to cover two more very short things. David Attenborough, collapse of civilization is on the horizon. This is from The Guardian. Naturalist tells leaders at UN Climate Summit that fate of the world is in their hands. The collapse of the civilization, and the natural world is on the horizon. I added the Sir David Attenborough has told the UN Climate Change Summit in Poland. The naturalist was chosen to represent the world's people in addressing delegates of almost 200 nations who are in Katowice to negotiate how to turn pledges made in the 2015 Paris climate deal into reality. As part of the UN's People's Seat initiative, messages were gathered from all over the world to inform Attenborough's address on Monday. Right now, we are facing a man-made disaster of global scale, our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change, he said. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. Do you not see what is going on around you? Asked one young man in a video message played as part of a montage to the delegates. We are already seeing increased impacts of climate change in China, says a young woman. Another woman standing outside a building burned down by wildfire says, this used to be my home. Attenborough said, the world's people have spoken. Time is running out. They want you, the decision makers, to act now. Leaders of the world, you must lead. The continuation of civilizations and the natural world upon which we depend is in your hands. So I'm going to read of that, and I'm going to move. Maybe I won't move on to something else. Lastly, I'll finish with this, and I save the other thing I was going to read for tomorrow. East Antarctica's glaciers are stirring. This is from BBC, December 11th. NASA says it has detected the first signs of significant melting in the swath of glaciers in East Antarctica. The region has long been considered stable and unaffected by some of the more dramatic changes occurring elsewhere on the continent. Satellites have now shown that ice streams running into the ocean along 1/8 of the eastern coastline have thinned and sped up. If this trend continues, it has consequences for future sea levels. There is enough ice in the drainage basins in the sector of Antarctica to raise the height of global oceans by 28 meters if it were all to melt out. That's the water equivalent to 4 Greenlands of ice, said Catherine Walker from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Institute in Greenbelt, Maryland. The glaciologist has been detailing her work here at the fall meeting of the American Geophysical Union. Dr. Walker has been making the most of a new initiative at the agency to process huge numbers of satellite images to get a more resolved and more timely view of what is happening in East Antarctica. Previously, scientists have been aware that the region's Totten Glacier was experiencing melting, most probably as a result of its terminus being affronted by warm water coming up from the deep ocean. Pretty much everyone else that in that part of the continent was considered, everything else in that part of the continent was considered stagnant. There's not an everyone in Antarctica. Considered stagnant, however. The new satellite elevation and velocity maps change this view. They make it clear that nearby glaciers to Totten are also starting to respond in a similar way. Once again, the melting culprit is likely to be warm water that is being pulled up from the deep by shifting sea ice and wind patterns in the region. The changes that are occurring are still quite subtle, and they are only really discernible because of the new automated computer tools that will search through the millions of satellite images taken of Antarctica. NASA is about to widen access to these tools through a project called Intermission Time Series of Land Ice Velocity and Elevation, or ITS Live. That's cool. I think we can anticipate that over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have a lot of observationally driven discoveries, such as what Catherine is making because of the new data that's coming online, said Alex Gardner, a glaciologist with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. And that is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Thank you all for your generous donations and your support. It really, really helps to keep this channel going. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so with the links below. Until next time, peace.